Very good. Well, welcome everyone to our presentation on the value of formal mentoring on engagement, persistence, and academic success. This presentation complements our colleagues who presented today in their panel presentation called Students Helping Students and Collaborative Relationship Building, a Tool for Student Success and Retention. We appreciate you being with our program today, though we know there's many choices. We're grateful that you have chosen ours for your time with us. My name is Roseanne Bensley, and I am a CHAMPS program coordinator, and I work both with students and mentors as an additional support system to aid both parties. And sometimes I also serve as a mentor with the students. Prior to joining UAGC last November, I worked for many, many years in career services and other aspects of higher education. And so I have seen over the years the different levels of persistence and academic success that have been proven successful for students. And I have to say, mentorship is certainly the number one key that I have seen for student success. At this time, I would like to have our colleagues introduce themselves, and we'll start with Elvia Cedeno.
Thank you, Roseanne. And good afternoon and evening, everybody. My name is Elvia Cedeno, and I am the Technology and Systems Operations Specialist for the CHAMPS Peer Mentoring Program here at UAGC. Some of you may already know that we are housed under the Student Affairs Department. And my role is to provide a lot of the kind of behind the scenes support, a lot of our software needs, and we work exclusively with People Grove, which my co-presenter Megan will talk more about later. And all other operational needs. I have extensive experience also working in higher ed. I also come from career services, working with internships, and I just really have to reiterate what Roseanne said about students seeking out mentorship and that being so valuable to their experiences while they're pursuing their higher education degree. Thank you all for joining us here today, and I'll hand it over to Megan.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Megan Funk. As Elvia had mentioned, I work for People Grove, and People Grove is the software system that the CHAMPS program utilizes, and I'll talk a little bit more during my section of the presentation with that. My background is also in higher education, so I've been at People Grove for over 3 years now. I work as the senior customer success manager. So I work with the teams here, the CHAMPS team, to talk about how we can really make the program strategic and best meet the needs of your community, because something we'll talk about is what it means to have really meaningful mentorship and making sure those connections are meaningful that align to not only the goals of the participants in the program, but also the goals of your institution, the different departments. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I am based in Chicago. I've worked at several Chicagoland higher education institutions prior to coming to People Grove. So I'm really excited to chat with you all today about mentorship.
Thank you so much, Megan. Megan and I share some similarities in that I was born and raised in Chicago, and my undergrad institution is DePaul University, and that is the institution that Megan completed her PhD at. So that was a nice funny fact when we just met each other and discovered that we had those similarities. And that's what mentorship is. It's meeting people, it's learning about things, it's finding common ground and connection. Elvia and I both worked in career services, so that was a fun connection with us. And I'm based in New Mexico, and Elvia is in California, so we have an understanding of this part of the world and what goes on with students. But what are the predictions of college student success? The qualities that make us most human as individuals is just connection, community, positivity, belonging, and a sense of meaning. These are the things that allow corporations to thrive and sometimes to help outdo the competition when you know that someone is there that truly cares about you. But let's take another look at persistence. Historically, characteristics of student persistence and graduation completion were most often linked to the strategy that honored the full-time residential younger undergraduate. Adult students have been viewed as high risk and typically problematic students for continuous enrollment and degree completion. The experiences of non-traditional students is altogether a different experience, and the difficulties they face, which may affect their persistence, cannot be reduced to the variables of the persistence attrition models. In some, support from significant others in an adult student life encourages persistence. Let's look at some research. Felton and Lambert work shows that the best predictors of satisfaction among college students have to do with relationships. All students, regardless of background, ability, age, whomever they are, we all need relationships, and specifically relationships with adults, with peers, with people who can relate to them on their level. Every student needs what Felton and Lambert call a relentless welcome. Schlossberg describes 4 aspects of mattering: attention, being noticed, importance, being cared about, ego extension, and knowing that others are proud of what an individual does. Just being needed makes a huge difference. The feeling that one is noticed, to believe that the other person cares what we want and think and feel, the feeling that other people will be proud of our accomplishments and supportive of times when things just didn't go as planned. You know, personal story, COVID obviously has been a big factor for so many, and students' lives have changed, their home life has changed. But when they knew that someone from CHAMPS were there for them, supported them, encouraged them, even if things in their home life was not going the way they had planned, it gave them that little extra push to say, wow, I do matter. Someone does care. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get through this. And most importantly, I'm going to stay in school. I'm going to continue to pursue my courses. The feeling that a person can depend on someone else, the feeling that one's efforts are appreciated by others. These are reasons why college students can have more success if they have the opportunity to be mentored. Let's look at another slide. The importance of having a mentor just simply can't be overstated. Here we have different quotes from some well-known individuals. John C. Maxwell, if you aren't familiar, is a leading author of management and leadership books. The people closest to me determine my level of success or failure. The better they are, the better I am. And if I want to go to the highest level, I can do it only with the help of other people. We have to take each other higher. And if you work in a coaching environment, oftentimes a coach will pit better players against not so better players. I shouldn't say not so better, but different level skill, because it pushes you. It encourages you to do more. And I'll give you a story. My spouse, my husband, was sharing a time when he was in ROTC in college, and they were with another university. And my husband was a person who did not have a partner from his current school, so they paired him up with someone at the other school. And that person was a lot better than he's ever experienced before. And he shared that he did the most push-ups and the most sit-ups during that experience than he's ever done in his life. And partly that's because there was someone there pushing him, was encouraging him to do more than what he was used to, allowed him to find the fight in him to do something bigger and better. So that's what I think that quote is all about, is having someone who's just going to encourage you to go bigger than what you thought you could. what you want from a mentor is someone who truly cares for you, who has your interest as their core of why they are there to support you. When you do come across that right person, you need to show them that you care too, and that the time they spend with you truly is worthwhile. Go back to Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. So if you're thinking about becoming a mentor, please reach out to the CHAMPS program. We would love to have you join us as a mentor. And if you're here and you need and you want to be mentored, you're the mentee, we are here for that as well. But my ultimate favorite quote that I use all the time, and I also look at every day as a reminder of why I'm at work. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never, ever forget how you made them feel. And that is a quote that I live by, because our actions have reaction. And if the action is something that encourages a student to go an extra mile, go an extra day, that's what matters in working in the CHAMPS mentoring program. So let's move on and look at some other aspects of mentoring. A mentor is that trusted guide. Not everyone feels comfortable asking for help. But when you sign up for the CHAMPS mentoring program, you're going to get the help. You're going to talk to people about things that maybe you wouldn't just voluntarily say, hey, I want to talk about this. We're going to encourage you to discuss things that may open up the possibilities. We might be talking about library research, the Writing Center, career services that inspire and encourage other questions. A mentor is someone who listens to you. You know, you're working all day, maybe you're a parent, you have a lot of things going on, but when you're in a mentoring session, you're the king and queen. You're the person that matters. We're going to listen to you. We're going to hear you. And you have that opportunity to feel important. Someone who will help you explore opportunities. There are different mentoring programs. And in our presentation earlier today, our team talked about those programs that will explore different opportunities, career, professional. Someone who has a good idea about how to deal with different difficult situations. So if we're introducing a mentee to a high-achieving upperclassman, they may have already gone through some of the things that the new student is experiencing and can give them that sense of hope and pride that they can continue. Friendships with fellow students play a large role in a college student life. And the bonds that students create with their peers can drive their engagement within other aspects of the campus community. Studies have shown that students who participate solely in online learning may not experience that connection. But through the CHAMPS mentoring program, we encourage students to build that connection and not feel so isolated. Let's see what else we have to talk about. So globally, the UAG CHAMPS program has been in existence since 2014. It was created by Evan Gray, and some of the leadership that have inspired and grown the program are Michelle Ruiz, Larissa Armstead, Jamie King, Maya Johnson, my colleague Elvia, and if I've forgotten anyone, please share that with me later. We can make sure we haven't left anyone. Carrie Storley. So there's many people behind the scenes that build the CHAMPS program to be collaborative, holistic, academic mentoring for peer success. We are providing an outlet to give students that sense that someone cares, they have a place to chat, and also gain skill set to help them persist in school. At this time, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Megan Funk from People Grove, to continue with our program.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So I'm going to chat with you about the CHAMPS program, really from the system side of the house. So again, at UAGC, you all leverage People Grove to really make sure we're setting up this program to be successful for both your mentees and your mentors. And so first, I just want to acknowledge that the product and the platform itself is really set up and built upon what we know in our research about mentorship. And so a little bit of a quick review too is from what Roseanne had stated, we know that for mentorship programs, especially for the benefits for mentees, when mentees participate in a mentorship program, when they're making connections, we know that it's increasing their motivation and their confidence. We're providing them access to opportunities. So maybe having conversations with somebody else, with getting that formal connection, they are getting opportunities to ask questions that are meaningful to them. They are getting access to collaborate, share ideas, get insight that they maybe wouldn't have gotten otherwise if they didn't participate in a program. And really going back to getting that sense of feeling, getting that sense that they're cared for, getting that sense that they're supported, they have a champion in their corner, that's really setting them apart from maybe different aspects in their life. Maybe they don't have access to someone who can be their champion, who can be their support system. And I think that's what builds that connection with your institution. And so as we're speaking specifically in the case of the CHAMPS program, getting to build that affinity for that student or for that mentee to UAGC. So building that sense of belonging. And we're starting to shut down those silos. We're starting to help individuals not feel so isolated and building that community. And that leads to, as Roseanne had mentioned earlier, that sense of belonging, which then leads to that student retention. So a student who feels, I am supported here at the institution. I do have a place to go where I know I'm going to get the help I need. I have a goal. I want to succeed. And the CHAMPS program is going to help me get there in my connection with my mentor. And so really with People Grove, our platform is a career exploration platform. It helps to build social capital utilizing mentorship. And so as we know from a social capital perspective, just from industry research, in higher education, students who enter an institution, the majority of them, 70% say, yes, I do want to make connections with alumni or with professionals to help me reach my career goals. But unfortunately, the reality is that very few do so. So less than 30% by the time they're getting to the point of graduation are actually making that connections. Are making those connections. And so as we talk about the CHAMPS program today and talking about formal programs that we support at People Grove with our different partners across several across worldwide or across the world through different higher education institutions, how are we making that difference? And so when we talk about formal programs specifically, on the platforms themselves, we're talking about providing an online environment where you all as faculty and staff can manage these programs, make them very intentional for your users, for your formal program participants, to make these connections so you can grow these relationships, not only getting folks involved in the program, but how do you keep ongoing engagement that's meaningful to the users? It's not just having a mentee and a mentor join a program, make that connection and say, okay, you're on your own, but you're creating these really intentional connections, but then also encouraging really intentional engagement. And then on the flip side, you as that faculty or staff member can track that engagement and make it scalable. And when I say scalable, we recognize, especially in higher education, it's very likely that there are resources that are scarce, right? Or maybe there isn't the staffing capacity that we want. And so how are you reaching or maximizing your capacity to outreach to students and alumni, different mentees and mentor populations, but also making it realistic for your staffing and faculty needs? And so with that, I just want to take a moment to really touch on, from the system or the platform side of the house, what are the big highlights or opportunities that exist to build these really meaningful formal programs on this online system? And I'd say one of the biggest ones is having the ability, and again, from the scalable capacity, to bulk match your users. So if you've got your pocket of users or mentees or program participants who are mentees, and you've got a large population too of your mentors, instead of spending that time as a faculty or staff member to go through and manually match people, whether you're using paper and pen or an Excel sheet, our system will actually go through and run a bulk match to help you speed up that process. So you as an admin can focus on those more important pieces of making sure your participants have access to the program and keep that ongoing engagement. The other thing too is we have a lot of our partners who will in their formal programs do a completely random match, which is fantastic. But we also have some partners who want to create even more intentional connections. So you can actually apply an algorithm on the platform to match folks by different criteria within your program. So for example, you can match a mentee and a mentor based on what is their major, what is their interest area or industry interest that they have or a career that they want to pursue. You can match by location. You can match by identities. And we'll talk a little bit of how partners are leveraging formal programs for different types of programs, such as affinity groups. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to go even a step further and create really intentional matches that will set your mentees and mentors up for success. And then something I keep mentioning is the importance of the engagement in the program. How do you keep ongoing engagement for your users so they don't just match with someone and then don't seem to really engage in the long term with those individuals? And so the platform itself has the ability for you to set goals or tasks or curriculum for your mentees and mentors to achieve throughout the program. And then it gives you as the admin the ability to track the progress for all of your participants around those goals. You are able to message your participants, which I think is really great. We get great feedback from partners about being able to track all of that, send messages all in one spot instead of maybe having to use an external emailing system, for example. You can survey participants. We know in higher education the importance of assessment and feedback. So being able to ask your participants throughout the program, how is the program going? Are your needs getting met? What are some things you would like to see improved upon? So you can either as an admin, keep things that are successful going, or maybe from feedback you learn, hey, there's some changes we need to make sure that both our mentees and mentors are being set up for success. And again, that's all housed in one spot on the platform. You can also provide resources to your mentees and mentors. And there's also the functionality of a discussion board. So having that the time to have those one-on-one connections, but also opening it up to your group of all your participants who are involved in the program to be able to communicate and collaborate together. So as we've talked about things that are specific to the system itself, I want to talk about how does that all relate now to the UAGC CHAMPS program specifically and some best practices. So I always tell folks, people don't know what they don't know. So we at People Grove offer mentee and mentor resources. You are also welcome if you've got some best practices too. You can upload those resources into a formal program. But I say those are really important because maybe you've got someone who wants to be a mentor for the first time, but they don't know what it means to be a mentor, or they want to make sure they're setting themselves up for success so they can really be a meaningful resource to that mentee. Or that mentor. They can do that, and you can really guide your participants along that path of success. The program also lets you set program expectations. And I think that's something else that's really important to note is when maybe someone is signing up for the program, do they really have the realistic expectations of what does it mean to be part of this program? What does it mean to be a mentee in this program? Or what are the expectations of being a mentor? Is there a specific time commitment? Are there specific dates that are going to be really important to be part of this program? Is there a certain number of meetings or connections we're supposed to be making with our mentor or mentees throughout this program? And what's really great is we at People Grove have some really great best practice recommendations for you all based on our work with our different partners. But I think what's really great too is maybe you have your own expectations. The programs can be set up to really meet your needs as well, which is really great. And I always say to folks, I always sound like a broken record, but I think it's really important to note getting folks to join the formal program is just the beginning. It's so important that we have ongoing meaningful engagement. And so that's something else we at People Grove have is recommendations to keep those ongoing relationships and that engagement going to really make sure folks are not only set up for success, but they hit ongoing short-term goals, long-term goals to really make sure we're setting or having folks grow and evolve throughout this program. And I think what's so great is within our formal programs, partners will leverage formal programs differently. But really looking at the CHAMPS programs, I think it's really important to talk about what are some things that this program specifically is doing really great. And I know Olivia is going to talk in a little bit too specifically about the program, but one thing to note is, UAGC, it's a remote campus. And so how are we building this environment and leveraging this formal program to outreach to folks who aren't typically physically in person, right? So I think what's really great is this formal program gives your users, both mentees and mentors, the opportunity to come together in a remote space and make these really meaningful connections. The other thing to think about is UAGC having non-traditional students. And so what's I think so great and what this program has done that's really intentional is thinking about your student population, your alumni population, and formulating this program that is allowing folks to come together and connect on differences that maybe we typically see are different than maybe what we typically think of at higher education institutions. And I think that's what this team has done so well is taking our formal programs and really molding it to best meet needs there. And I'd say one of the really great things is thinking about how you all don't have a traditional academic year. And so you are really leveraging, and by you, I mean UAGC, the team here with the CHAMPS program, is they're leveraging this formal program to create these really intentional touch points with students and alumni in the mentorship program. So again, not having these formal times a year where you're really getting to connect with folks, you now have a formal program where you have ongoing touch points. Your mentees have touch points with their mentors. You also have goals, those goals that you can create to have those as touch points throughout the formal program. So you've got this constant interactions with mentees, with mentors, and the admins of the program, which I think is really fantastic and is something that sets this program specifically apart from maybe other things that other of our People Grow partners are doing. And something I think that's really important too is this idea that you don't need to start from scratch. We do have partners who maybe they want to create a formal program from scratch when they are putting it onto the platform. That definitely happens. But just knowing that if you've got a formal program, you can take that program and then move it over to the platform to really streamline your processes, to bring everything together, and going back to that main theme of making it scalable, putting everything in one spot so you don't need to use multiple systems or emailing threads or places to send out surveys. Everything can be done in-house to make it really user-friendly, not only for your mentees and your mentors, but for you all as the admin too. Yeah. And I just want to also mention too that, again, we work with so many partners here at People Grove. We work with over 450 partners worldwide. The majority of our partners, I'd say about 95% are higher education institutions, but we do work with some high schools. We work with nonprofits and other organizations as well. But I just want to talk about two of those partners. A lot of our, moving back, a lot of our higher ed institutions will leverage formal programs to make those more one-on-one connections, if you will. And so I just wanted to highlight a few. I put some institutional logos there, but I want to just talk about some different ways that folks can leverage formal programs, just so to give you an idea that there is so much potential here to be creative and really think about what are different aspects at your institution. You can start building these formal mentorships that can be really meaningful in the work that you do. And so I'd say one that's very popular are peer mentorship programs. Down there, I have the Toronto Metropolitan University. They were formerly known as Ryerson University. They have a fantastic peer mentorship program. It is completely voluntary to sign up to either be a mentor or a mentee. Mentees, their students are not required to be part of the program, but the program is set up to match first-year students with students who are closer to graduation. And they've done such a great job of connecting students and really highlighting the benefits that their students, especially from a mentor or mentee perspective, have gotten out of that program. And they've really gotten a lot of buy-in across campus, and they've spread word across campus that especially when the pandemic started, and a lot of these students did not have access to be in person with folks, as a way to build an affinity, they did a fantastic job marketing the program across campus as a way of, hey, do you want to feel connected? Do you need help and assistance? And you want to connect with your peers? This is the way to do that. And they got fantastic buy-in with their programs, which is great, especially considering this is a program that is not required, whereas we do have partners that do have programs that are required of students in different capacities. There's also the long-term student and alumni mentorship that's also extremely popular too, but a way for students to learn about from the alumni, from folks who they have gone through that student experience at that institution, or now maybe they're working in a major or career where that student wants to eventually get to. Again, building out that social capital that we talked about earlier to really expand one's network. We have industry-specific mentorship programs. An institution I'll highlight there is Washington University in St. Louis. They have fantastic programs they run specifically for their engineering school. They've got multiple engineering programs to make sure their students feel set up for success specifically in that major. Something the Washington University in St. Louis takes advantage of specifically that's a little bit unique is they actually don't have the staffing capacity to run formal programs to the degree that they really wanted to when they signed on with People Grove. So they actually leverage at People Grove, we have managed services for formal programs. So they actually have one of our team members run their program for them and then report out with their staff members. And so that's a program that's been really great for them, and it's worked really well for them as well. And then we've had partners who will leverage internship courses as a way they'll leverage formal programs to connect students. One way is connecting international students with different students or alumni or community members across campus. Another one is also by industry specific. So Loyola University of Chicago, they have a formal program for their business school. Going back to Washington University in St. Louis, within their engineering program, they have a program specifically for women in engineering. So we've got a lot of partners who will leverage, as I mentioned before, building programs around affinity. Another institution would be, some institutions even have Black student alumni programs, student athletic programs. So different niches around campus around shared interests or shared values is really popular as well. And then the last thing I want to mention too is here at People Grove, we are really, really finding value in exploring mentorship and what is successful mentorship. And I know Elvia and Roseanne and I have talked about something that came out really recently this past summer or late summer, is that our CEO, Adam Saban here at People Grove, co-authored a book with Eric Koster called Super Mentors. Some of you may have read it or heard of it. But really in the book talks about what is it to have really great value and meaningful mentorship. So how can you leverage or develop mentorship between your students and alumni and community members that really takes it to the next level, and making sure that the mentees are set up for success, making sure that the mentors are prepared, and what does that relationship look like? And so Super Mentors is the book that they co-authored together. It talks about how is it also easy to provide value in student and alumni. Eric Koster works or has taught at Georgetown and learned in his classes, how do you make it scalable, but also create really valuable mentorship or opportunities? He really leans into this idea of opportunities for mentees to really grow and build their skills. And so that's what Super Mentors talks about. And it also talks about being strategic and creating, again, these measurable success and outcomes at the institution. And so if you haven't heard about it or you haven't read it, please let me know. We can set you up with a free virtual copy. So it's something you can talk about really bringing to your campus, bringing to your mentees and your mentors in your program. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Elvia, who's going to talk even more about the CHAMPS program.
Great, thank you so much. This is a lot of really great information, and I just really want to culminate it to what exactly an internship mentorship program looks like. And if you haven't checked out Maya's presentation from earlier, it provides a lot of really great kind of insider day-to-day, what does that look like? What programs do we host? How are these interactions happening with our students? I would absolutely recommend it. She and the rest of the CHAMPS team did an amazing job. Let me in the windows. So what does a peer mentoring program look like? At UAGC, our program is strong at over 400 active participants, meaning they're all working towards getting connected with a mentee or mentor, or they are already connected with one and are actively working on meeting one of the goals that Megan had talked about within our mentorship database, People Grove. We also see that it does skew heavily on the mentee side, and this is absolutely expected from an internal perspective as we heavily recruit our mentees to meet our internal strategic goals. But the rest is quite kind of straightforward. It's very reflective of our student population. We see that it's maybe a little bit over students are coming from the College of Arts and Sciences. And so we do work with students who are, who have majors in these departments, and really kind of popular majors are early childhood education, healthcare administration, and alternatively for the fourth School of Business and Technology, we work with students who are business administration majors to information technology. And data tells us that mentorship works. So in several years ago, we had an internal analysis conducted with students who matriculated in 2019 to 2020. And students who participated in CHAMPS for at least 1 week were matched with other students who did not participate in CHAMPS. And they were matched based on very similar demographics, such as degree level, gender, race, ethnicity, and transfer credit. And the results speak for themselves. So the progression rate of CHAMPS participants, those who completed and even did not complete but did participate in the program, were consistently higher than those of the matched group. So as you see here on the chart, we see that 7 weeks after starting the mentorship program, CHAMPS participants' progression rate was 4% higher. 15 weeks after starting the program, their progression rates were 6 points higher, and 23 weeks, they were still 4% higher. This again was all internally done. Thank you to the work of our Office of Institutional Effectiveness, and really, they just really summed it up by saying that the progression rates of CHAMPS participants were consistently higher than those of the matched group. So in closing, as we talked today about, mentorship is a really valuable tool that allows for the forging of strong relationships. In terms, it does support our students' persistence and success in their academic journey. Thank you all for your time, and we absolutely have enough time right now to take any questions that you may all have.
So if you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat, or if you're comfortable, you can unmute yourself. But I'll start with a question that was on Whova. And the question is, do we have actual mentorship programs at our school? I am from one of the school's biggest and most popular departments, and we do not have that.
Absolutely. I mean, really, we hope that, whoever asked this question was here and today, just kind of learning and observing and listening about what we do. But it sounds like this is from a student perspective, and absolutely, we do have CHAMPS, which is for all students. So this isn't particularly like for one particular college versus the other, or, as long as students do meet the criteria, which is essentially as they're matriculated, they're in the university, they can go ahead and log on to UAGC Connect/People Grove, and they can go ahead and find us. We are happy to work with you if you need step-by-step assistance, and maybe like logging in, finding where exactly you need to click. Just feel free to reach out to me, to Roseanne, Megan. I'm sure we'll be also happy to help you with that. And we can go ahead and walk you through the process and let you, get a little bit more familiar about what we do. Roseanne and Megan, do you have any other additions to what I just said?
I'm going to refer it back to Megan, because you see what other institutions are doing. Obviously, we only know what we do internally. How would you compare UAGC's formal program to anybody else's mentoring program?
Yeah, I would say, well, a few things. So first, I think it's so fantastic, the data that you have all pulled from your formal program. So, Elvia, I think just stating all those different, comparing that to your institutional progression, I think is huge. So that's something that you all are doing that I haven't seen as much at other institutions. There is some connections back to retention, specifically with the formal programs, but it's not something that all of our institutions do. And so I think that's something to think about is, if it's either a pain point or even something that's successful in your own departments that you want to really make sure, how are you providing resources that are leading to progression or retention? That is something to think about with formal programs. But I think also what you all do really well is creating a formal program that is accessible to your community members, especially students. So sometimes there's certain formal programs, as I showed earlier, where maybe it is really specific to an industry, or maybe it's only open to first year students, graduating students, something like that. But this is a program that is open to students who are saying, yes, I want to build a connection. I need additional assistance. For example, I want to be set up for success. I want to have that additional resource. I want that champion in my corner. That's something you all do really great, is giving that opportunity and providing that access to your community. And, we talked earlier, the importance of social capital. And I think that's something that, especially at People Grow, we really do try to put an emphasis on formal programs is, we recognize folks come from different backgrounds, different experiences, and folks might show up at an institution and maybe they do have those circles of knowledge. Maybe they do have family members or a group of friends that can provide them access to opportunities or making connections or networking. But we have to recognize not all of our students come from those types of environments or those backgrounds. You might have someone who doesn't have access to anyone, and in feeling that sense of isolation or loneliness, or they don't have that champion and support. And I think something you all do really well at UAGC is providing that access. So giving folks, trying to start to level that playing field by giving folks that access. So I think that's something really important to think about, especially for folks, who are on the call today and participating in this conference. What are ways that you all can provide more access? And I think thinking about leveraging a formal program, or even thinking about how can you start to bring your community members together to start to build that social capital for your students, thinking about how can you start to bring some of your initiatives to a formal program to, again, going back to that idea of making it scalable for your department. This is a lift because it already exists at UAGC. And I know we might have folks who aren't from UAGC, but something to think about at your institution. How can you start to kind of build that social capital for your community?
If I may, I just want to add, when a mentor and a mentee have a meeting, the date and time of that meeting is an arrangement between those two parties. So it could be in the afternoon, in the evening, on a weekend, and that really helps support the student because it's not meant to just be from 8 to 5. It's not in a traditional workday. It's whatever time frame works for those two parties. And the other thing is, though we have structured goals, there isn't a set deadline. And so that also takes into consideration our mantra of culture of care, in that sometimes a student might need to take a 2-week break from the mentoring relationship to take care of something else. But the mentor and the mentee have that understanding to build that schedule together that works for both parties.
And I would add to that too, is that the platform itself allows for different ways of communication. I think that's really important because that also helps meet the needs of the mentor and the mentee. So through the platform, you can send messages. You can also set up, as Roseanne had said, you can set it up to meet the time frame you want to meet. So you can add your calendars, easily access when folks are available, and you can schedule phone calls or video calls through the platform, which I think is really great because I think it's important to recognize some folks aren't comfortable maybe sharing their personal phone numbers, personal Zoom information, for example. So if somebody wants to say, if I were to say, Roseanne, I want to set up a meeting with you as my mentor, I can schedule it through the platform. And once Roseanne confirms that time, it'll send us a link to either do a phone bridge, so I don't have to share my phone number, or it'll send us a link to jump on a video call through the platform. And again, then that engagement is tracked and you all as the admin can see if when folks are meeting too, which is really great.
Okay, there was only one other question asked in the chat. It looks like it has been addressed as far as how to get a mentor. So other than that, if you have any other questions, now's the time to ask. I don't see any hands raised, and I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat.
Shout out to Maya. She is on top of it. She was able to respond to that question about how to join. And yeah, she says you would join the CHAMPS program, and we will go ahead and pair you with a mentor. And then my colleague Roseanne on there too posted a link. So please click on that, and that'll guide you directly to our homepage.
And as Megan mentioned earlier about the super mentors, at the end of our references is a specific link to obtain that publication. And several weeks ago, I had the opportunity to actually read that publication. It is a wealth of knowledge, and I was very impressed with it. And I'm also grateful that it was a free publication. Kudos to the author and the people involved. Even if you're not involved in mentoring or being a mentor or a mentee, just the concept of human relations and interaction and career success. You know, I like to use the word team. Together, everyone achieves more. Life is not an individual sport. We need each other. We are a village, we are a community, and we help each other. And UAGC is a fantastic institution. Our staff are from everywhere, our students are everywhere, and that uniqueness of having so many people from all corners of the earth coming together in an educational institution really adds to the value of mentoring, because you're not only being mentored from someone in your own community, but you are having the opportunity to be mentored from individuals who have many levels of life skill based on where they live and the experiences they've gone through, because they are adult learners and they bring with them all of the, you know, do this, don't do that, and recommendations to help you. So I can't speak more highly of the value of the CHAMPS program at UAGC. I'm just going to chime in. There are many members of our student support assistant team I see here in the room. If you want to say anything in the chat, you're more than welcome to. I will then also reiterate what Elvia said earlier, in that this morning, Maya Johnson and team did a fabulous presentation that truly covers the inner workings of CHAMPS, all the mentoring programs. And we're hopeful that today's program, our program, provides full circle, a little bit from both sides, the internal, the external, and the value that we bring. And so if you are not from UAGC and you would like to continue this conversation, we'd be more than happy to connect you with Evan Gray, the manager director of the CHAMPS program. I'm sure he would be very happy to talk to you about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and connect you with Megan and People Grove on how we can use the existing material, so you're not having to build something from scratch. Isn't that great? Nobody wants to have to start at ground zero when something's already there.
Shante, do we have any other questions from the other chat that we can't see right now?
No, that was the last of the questions.
Well, thank you all so much. We are concluding this presentation, and again, just reiterating that you're more than welcome to reach out to us if you want to collaborate and connect. Thank you all for your time. Roseanne, Megan, any other thoughts?
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.